Não, terça, isso.
Are you professor or doctor, Ivo?
Only doctor.
Ah, okay.
Tchau, filhote.
Okay, I think that we can start now, can't we? Okay, great. So I am delighted to open this afternoon session, early evening session rather, which will be dedicated to economy and law in the Roman Empire. We will hear two lectures. The first one will be by Dr. Ivo Cholakov. Dr. Cholakov works at the Department of Interdisciplinary Research and Archaeological Map of Bulgaria of NAIM PAS. He has finished his PhD in NAIM BAS, I'm not sure what it is, sorry, in 2006. His main interests are Roman and late antique archaeology in Bulgaria and the Balkan Peninsula, Roman terracottas, ancient tools and small finds. He has excavated at various Roman cities such as Dueltum and Heraclea Sintica. His paper today is on the subject of local economy in difficult times, the villas of Dacia Mediterranea in the end of the 4th and early 5th century. Here we go, please.
Okay, hi everyone. I am Milena. I'm going to be reading. We excavated this villa together with Ivo. NAIM BAS, by the way, means National Archaeological Institute with museum. You see it on your screen. Anyway, we truly regret we can't join you in person in Israel. We were so looking forward to be there with you, but things are as they are, and good that we have technology to connect.
Excuse me, Elena, I'm sorry to interrupt you. May I ask you to speak closer to the microphone?
Sure.
It's hard for us to hear you here.
Okay, we'll also kill the video so you can hear us better.
Well, just don't kill the screen.
Sure. All right. This talk is about a very difficult time, very much like ours, namely late antiquity, and the challenges that local economy had to face in a very dramatic time of political reforms and constant enemy attacks. We are taking special interest in the Villae Rusticae as an emblematic feature of late antique economy, and we would like to reflect on perhaps one of the most problematic areas of the Roman world at the time, the Balkans, and specifically the province of Dacia Mediterranea. We would like to focus on the villas excavated in the vicinity of the capital Serdica, which is today's Sofia in Bulgaria. We will outline briefly the general historical background, and then we are going to use as a case study the villa near Mirovine village, which is one of the very few surviving and visitable villas today in the area of Sofia, and which Ivo and I have been excavating together for the past 7 seasons. In this way, we hope to offer a glimpse at the everyday life and local economy of a typical late antique villa rustica, whose entire existence was inevitably linked to the proximity of the provincial capital and the major roads passing nearby. Late antiquity was an especially dynamic period for the entire Mediterranean. Most importantly, it was characterized with a major shift in the Roman political system and the administration of the empire. It was now ruled by a tetrarchy. The territory was divided in a new manner, and even the capital was moved. To this, one should add the rise of Christianity as the dominant religion in the empire. And last but not least, the period was marked by constant threat of attacking invaders coming mostly from the north. First of all, we would like to present in short the general factors that had an impact on late antique economy in the Balkans and specifically in the province of Dacia Mediterranean. One important consideration is the administrative changes the empire began to undergo already in the late 3rd century with the major military and political reforms under Aurelian. Due to the constant pressure of the Gothic tribes in the 270s, the emperor was forced to evacuate the Roman population from Trajan's Dacia beyond the Danube and resettled it to the south in a new province called Dacia Aureliana in remembrance of the abandoned one. It appeared over parts of the former larger provinces of Thrace, Mysia Superior, and Macedonia. Less than 10 years later, the reform was continued by Diocletian and fully completed under Constantine the Great. The empire was thus divided into large prefectures with dioceses within them, and these were further subdivided into smaller provinces. The Aureliana province was split into 2 new provinces, one of which became Dacia Mediterranea. Under Constantine the Great, the capital was moved to Constantinople, and all of these had an immediate impact on the territory in question. Serdica, previously a mid-range town of the Roman province of Thrace, acquired a new status and became the capital, first of Dacia Aureliana and then of Dacia Mediterranea. These events contributed significantly to economic life in this part of the Balkans. First, the emergence of innumerable smaller provinces led to the appearance of new provincial capitals. Some of these cities, like Serdica, had never been administrative centers before, and they had to accommodate all of a sudden new population, a new administrative apparatus, a residence of a provincial governor. This caused a major makeover of the city itself, and more importantly, the appearance of a new class of a ruling elite, comprising the administrators and also members of the clergy or the more and more influential Christian religion. Moreover, Serdica's location was rather strategic, in the hinterland of the new imperial capital, and it was frequently visited and personally favored by some of the tetrarchs, and it was conveniently located at the communicative area at the border between the 2 dioceses, Dacia and Thracia. The other crucial feature of late antiquity is, of course, the general military crisis in the empire and the constant barbaric invasions. In the late 4th and first half of the 5th century, there were 2 major movements of barbaric groups on the Balkans that have possibly impacted local economy. The 70s of the 4th century saw several Gothic incursions, culminating in the Battle of Adrianople in 378 and the death of Valens, the Roman emperor himself. Before and after this ominous event, there were numerous vagrant groups crossing and periodically looting Thrace. Nevertheless, these campaigns do not seem to have devastated the area of Serdica too badly or at all. There are hardly any archaeological indications that buildings were burned inside the city, and very few arguable traces are found outside the city. Far more serious was the Hunik invasion in the mid-5th century, which was more focused in this particular area, and all sites bear traces of destruction and massive fires. These events upset the economy long-term. Many buildings were ruined or abandoned, and many extra-urban properties were razed to the ground. We would like to explore life in the Villae Rusticae amidst all this turmoil. Naturally, you all know that villas existed in the Roman world since Roman Republican times, but they truly flourished in the 4th century all over the empire. They reflected a model that was typical of the time. The local and regional economy was not focused only inside the cities, but also in agrarian settlements and villas. It was partly based on a network of establishments of middle or upper class people in the periphery of urbanized territories. Some of these were large residences, others housed the managers of imperial or private domains, such as in areas of metal extraction, but the majority of them were farming households or production centers that constituted a significant part of local and regional economy, producing foodstuff and goods for everyday use, such as ceramic or metal products. Dacia Mediterranea is one of the better studied areas of the late Antique Balkans. Lately, due to numerous infrastructure projects both in Bulgaria and Serbia, more information has come to light. It is evident that the area around Serdica is characterized by a very large number of villas, in fact, much larger than that in the territories of other bigger or previously more prosperous cities. Villa construction in the area started already in the early Roman period because of the favorable natural conditions, but the real growth in the number of villas was boosted by the capital status of Serdica and the rapid economic development in the 4th century. And now we are moving on to our specific case study. Our villa is located near Sofia, some 2 kilometers northwest of the modern village of Mirovine. It is situated on the first river terrace of the Blatu River in the Sofia Valley. Our villa is in a non-urbanized territory today. It is set between 3 villages and falls in arable land, which is also the reason for its excellent state of preservation today. The distance between the villa and the ancient Serdica is about 12 kilometers as the crow flies. An initial rescue excavation was carried out in 2014, caused by an infrastructure project for a gas pipeline between Bulgaria and Serbia. A geophysical survey was made on the site and its surroundings prior to excavation. It demonstrated that the overall area of the complex is approximately 0.3 hectares. The planned course of the pipeline would have affected a major part of the complex. Thanks to the magnetic surveys, a new terrain was chosen for the pipeline and it was eventually moved. Up until now, the site has been excavated for a total of 6 seasons and we're just beginning the 7th. As a result, in the past years, we have discovered the remains of several buildings and structures from late antiquity, Middle Ages, Ottoman period, and modern times. For the late antique villa, we have identified 2 main construction periods with several subphases, which we will describe very briefly. You see here the general plan of the structures discovered so far, including the latest finds of season 2020. Until now, we have been exploring the pars rustica of the complex, mainly production and storage units. We have not discovered the residential part yet, but we can suppose that a second residential floor may have existed. The lack of luxury units is explained with the fact that we excavate a production part of the villa, but it is also not uncommon for this period to have no luxury units. We are hoping to find the bath complex and a horium in the following seasons. Based on the results of our 6 seasons of excavation so far, the terminus post quem for the original construction of the building can be set at some moment after 378 AD, dated with a valence coin found under the floor. This makes our villa one of the latest built villas in the area, and apparently it happened after the Gothic movements of the late 4th century, when generally this tendency of building villas is already in decline. Apparently, it was built by some wealthy enough citizen of Serdica, as the city seems unaffected by the Gothic events. The early plan of the villa is not fully explored, but what we have discovered so far indicates that the complex consisted of rows of rooms, a few separate units, and an inner open-air space, possibly a courtyard. The walls are made in the opus mixtum technique, built of solid masonry bound with white mortar. The roofing system consists of tegulae and imbrices. In 2 of the rooms, we discovered heating devices or hearths made of carefully arranged bricks. Brickwork is used also at all entrance sites where the door jambs were attached. We have also discovered a massive stone threshold for a double door gate leading out to the courtyard. Following some catastrophic event, the complex was burned to the ground at the very end of the 4th century or the beginning of the 5th. So far, however, we have no direct evidence whether it was a barbaric attack or another type of a disaster, such as an earthquake. The villa eventually recovered from the disaster, and its inhabitants encircled it with a massive stone wall. We have a terminus postquem for this event, 408, with an Arcadius coin. As a result, some of the damaged buildings were repaired and new ones were built. Thus, the area encompassed by the wall was 0.13 hectares, or about 1/3 of the initial size. In many instances, the circuit wall was attached to the already existing walls of the early buildings in order to enhance the thickness. Wherever there were no pre-existing buildings, the wall is solidly made, and in certain places, its substructure is dug in to a depth of more than 1.5 meters. We have also registered a channel that goes through the entire thickness of this wall. On 2 occasions, the newly built wall restricted pre-existing thresholds of a building from the first period. Despite the serious narrowing of the door openings and the fact that the building thus remained outside the fortified area, it stayed in use also throughout the second period. In several places, materials from the earlier period were used as spolia, such is the case with this column base used to raise the floor level in front of one of the thresholds. In 2018, we managed to find the gate of the walled area of the second period. It's oriented to the southwest towards Via Diagonalis, the major imperial road passing nearby. It was built on a spot where there had already been an entrance inside the building from the earlier period. After the devastating fire to the earlier wall was attached a new one from the outside, and the fire destructions were covered but not removed. The gate entrance is protected by a rectangular precinct, which is a portal or maybe even a small tower. At an unknown later stage, this second entrance was also built up, thus opening the question for us, where was then the fortified area accessed from? Within the limits of the second period, we constructed also a number of additional rooms, but the masonry was executed hastily and clay was used instead of mortar. After 457 AD, our building suffered from a destructive fire and the complex ceased to exist. Burnt remains are registered in all the buildings of the complex. Again, we must note that we are not able to attribute this end of the villa to any historically attested attack, as this happened after the documented Hunik invasions known in the area, which the villa presumably survived. One explanation could be that there may have been unrecorded so far attacks in the area by smaller groups targeting single households. It is also possible that the end of at least one of the construction phases of our villa is due to a domestic fire or an earthquake. In the 11th and the 12th century, on the spot of our former villa appeared some medieval dwellings made poorly of reused building materials. And now let's move on to the evidence directly related to the economy of the villa. Over the 6 seasons of excavation, we have discovered a remarkable amount of animal bones. The prevailing types are sheep and goat, cattle and pig. For all animal types, the skeleton is represented mostly by bones from the limbs, ribs, and vertebra. Bones from the head and toes are very rarely encountered. The probable reason for this is that the animals were slaughtered and butchered elsewhere. The larger part of the material was burnt, and traces of boning are seen in singular cases and always on the bones of domesticated animals. In the cases of sheep and cattle, the prevailing bones are of adult individuals, and they are twice as many as the young ones. The distribution suggests that the animals were used not only for the meat, but also as labor force and for the production of secondary products such as milk and wool. The paleobotanical analysis demonstrates the types of timber used in the complex: oak, beech, elm, maple, pine. We have established the predominance of leguminous crops and cereals in the diet. The leguminous crops were highly valued because of their nutrition values, and in many cases they could substitute wheat. It is worth to note the presence of lathyrus and small amounts of vetch. Today, these cultures are used exclusively for animal fodder, but in the past, they were part of the menu together with lentils and peas. Often, they were ground with barley or wheat flour for the preparation of bread and porridge. Such mixture was also discovered in our villa complex. Some of the beans that we found in pots were soaked overnight in water in preparation for consumption. The small finds from the villa are rather numerous. Many of them are ceramic lamps, some of which are decorated or glazed. Some of them bear Christian symbols such as this peacock and the mirrored hero sign. Various types of iron tools are also discovered, and the largest number among them is knives. To the inventory of the household belong also wedges, bill hooks, sickles, hoes, fittings for tools. They demonstrate that land cultivation was one of the main types of livelihood in the villa. In the course of research, we also found many intact or fragmented querns and the whole marble mortar. Iron dough scrapers also testify to bread production. The impressive number of lead weights for fish nets is probably connected to fishing in the nearby river. Many loom weights, some of which with stamped decoration, indicate textile production. This is also supported by spindle whorls, some of which are made of bone. As for the personal belongings of the villa's inhabitants, we have found fibulae, buckles, iron rings. In all seasons of research, we have been discovering large amounts of pottery. There is almost no luxury or imported pottery. We encountered predominantly kitchen and tableware as well as storage vessels. The most frequently attested shapes are pots, followed by bowls and plates. We also find many lids and storage vessels which vary in size. Amphorae and jugs are less often encountered, which is not surprising since the economy of the villa is evidently export rather than import oriented. It is worth to note that in our pottery repertoire, we encountered many strainers. These specific perforated vessels are used in the procession of dairy products. The milk must have been produced in the villa, having in mind the goat and sheep breeding data. Similar vessels have been found in other villa complexes near Serdica, but never in such large amounts. In 2019, we came across evidence for beekeeping in the villa as well, due to this intact cylindrical vessel and several fragments of other similar specimens. Such vessels are found in groups and are usually interpreted as beehives, although they often remain unidentified by archaeologists. The shape is very conservative, and it has been in use since ancient Egypt until today, especially in the Mediterranean region. Here you can see some parallels from Malta, Greece, and Israel. It is possible that in our villa, these were kept on the roof or in special niches, as other parallels suggest. For now, it is impossible to establish whether beekeeping was practiced to meet the needs of the inhabitants of the villa or on a larger scale. In the 6 seasons of excavations, we have discovered over 420 coins from stratified contexts, which enable us to build a very good chronology. The latest ones related to the last fire that destroyed the villa was tracked under the emperors Valentinianus III and Marcianus. Now, here is a picture of the other excavated villas in the area that would help to put Mirovian in context. Most of these don't exist anymore, or the published information is very scarce. Our villa is among the most thoroughly researched villas so far, and as I mentioned in the beginning, is one of the few visitable sites. Among the villas in the area is the luxurious residence at Kostinbrod, which was called Skretiska in ancient times, where Constantine the Great might have stayed. It is a large complex with mosaics and lavish decorations. It seems to be the only luxurious villa in the area. All the other villas around Serdica seem to be small to medium-sized agricultural establishments or workshops. Most of them are organized around a large courtyard with rows of rooms where the inhabitants lived or carried out different production activities. In this sense, our villa is a typical representative of the mid-class existence of that time. The closest parallels in terms of layout and chronology are found in the villa at Obelia, which is now a neighborhood inside Sofia. Now let's see again our villa in context among the other known villas in the territory of Serdica. The villa's existence was inevitably intertwined with the settlement pattern and infrastructure. The great number of villas appeared due to the economic prosperity of Serdica after its promotion to a provincial capital. This process continued for almost an entire century, and our villa is an example, namely, of the last wave of villa construction in the area. It may not have been destroyed by any of the historically recorded barbaric attacks of the time, but it was certainly affected by the events of the time, which led to the construction of a protection wall. Despite the fact that villa production was targeting mostly the local markets, the location of these households along the large thoroughfares of the empire, and especially via Diagonalis leading to Constantinople, gave opportunities also for regional trade. The artifacts found at Miroviane attest to a modest livelihood of the inhabitants. The main source of economy seems to have been farming and animal husbandry, and more specifically sheep and goat breeding and dairy production. Modern scholarship has shown that the existence of villae rusticae on the Balkan does not go beyond the 5th century.
Sorry to interrupt, maybe 3 more minutes, is it okay?
Yeah, we're just finishing.
Okay, thank you very much, thank you.
Okay. This is a conclusion. Around the 5th century, the villas stopped getting rebuilt or fortified as before. They were abandoned forever. While the main reason for the demise is usually sought in the Hunik attacks, some economic factors might also be considered. Perhaps some productions were moved to fortified settlements, and some of the population that used to own villas or buy villa production perished or moved to more secure areas. In any case, the reasons seem much more complicated than barbaric attacks traditionally accepted before as the reason for all processes. The villa has provided very much evidence on the life of its inhabitants and has furnished invaluable information on local food networks. Combining our data with what is known from the other complexes near Serdica, we now have a clearer picture of local economy. Hopefully the study of other small households like this one will illuminate further the idea of everyday life in late antique Serdica and its surroundings. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much for this fascinating paper. Unfortunately, we do not have time for questions. Maybe we could get some questions for your paper after the second lecture, which
That's no problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, but please stay. I mean, I hope that